What's up, everyone? I'm Dr. Julianne Morella, and welcome back to Sage Health TV. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about sleep and how to improve your sleep. So sleep issues is one of the first things that I like to address with my patients. And the reason for that is because lack of sleep can be associated with many different conditions, and there's so many benefits to getting adequate amount of sleep. So some of the benefits of sleep are improvement in immune function, secretion of hormones that aid in growth and repair, tissue regeneration, improvement in memory, and information recall, activation of our lymphatic system, which helps our brain function, prevention of weight gain, and longer lifespan. And so some of the short-term and long-term consequences of lack of sleep are: short-term is increased stress, body pain, emotional distress, and mood disorders, cognitive memory, and performance deficits. Long-term effects are cardiovascular disease, hypertension, so high blood pressure, elevated cholesterol and triglycerides, type 2 diabetes or insulin resistance, weight-related issues, colorectal cancer, and Alzheimer's disease. So, conventionally, when they treat sleep, medications such as Ambien and Trazodone are oftentimes prescribed. And yes, this probably does get to the goal, which is to get you to fall asleep, but it's not really addressing the root cause, which is what we want to do as naturopathic physicians and functional medicine doctors. We want to treat the root cause and see what's going on in your life, as opposed to just putting a Band-Aid on whatever you're experiencing. So, in order to properly treat sleep deprivation, we need to understand the science and the physiology of sleep. So what helps you wake up in the morning and what helps you fall asleep? So let's talk about the circadian rhythm. So our sleep-wake cycle. So if we look at this graph here, you'll see cortisol and melatonin play the major roles in our circadian rhythm. So cortisol is here in black and melatonin is here in red. So let's talk about cortisol first. So as you can see, in the morning, cortisol is at its highest and it's at its lowest at night. And the reason for this is because cortisol helps us feel awake in the morning. And so within the first 30 minutes of waking up, you see this huge spike of cortisol. And this is called our cortisol awakening response. Oftentimes people, when you ask them, do you wake up feeling rested? And oftentimes people say, no, I'm not waking up feeling rested. And the reason for that is because you're not getting this cortisol awakening response. So why are people not getting this cortisol awakening response? It could be stress, it could be hormone imbalances, it could be lack of sleep. And so then throughout the day, we should see that cortisol starts to decrease, should start to decrease. And right when we want to go to bed, and let's just say, average time of people wanting to go to bed is between 9 and 10 p.m. Or 12 a.m., hopefully between 9 p.m. and 10 p.m. You want to see cortisol pretty low. And if you look at this graph, cortisol levels are actually lower than when you wake up in the morning here, right? And the reason for that is, again, cortisol makes us feel awake. So we don't want this to be high. So things that can cause cortisol to spike, are stress, and that's emotional and physical stress, right? I think a lot of people think like, oh, stress is only emotional, but no, it's also physical too. So exercising, a lot of people will exercise at night, and this makes people feel really wired because your cortisol levels are spiking, right? And it should be you in the morning that you're working out because you want to, promote this natural cortisol rhythm. Other things that can affect cortisol are steroids. It could be thyroid or hormone imbalances. And there was an episode a few weeks back where we talked about the hypothalamus, pituitary, and adrenal axis. So go ahead and check that episode out. And I talk more about how our sex hormones and our thyroid and our adrenal glands are really connected. Okay, and so then the other thing that helps with the circadian rhythm is melatonin. So melatonin has the opposite rhythm of cortisol. So as you can see, melatonin is a lot lower in the morning, and then it spikes at nighttime. And the reason for that is because melatonin makes us feel sleepy. This is why people will supplement with melatonin right before bedtime, because it helps us fall asleep. So we want melatonin to be really, really high in the evening to help us fall asleep. So again, we want cortisol to be low and we want melatonin to be higher at night to help us fall asleep. So what are things that will decrease melatonin? Well, there's a lot of stuff in our daily lifestyle that actually decrease melatonin. One of them being blue light or artificial light or UVA light. This is why blue light blockers are really important. Not only does it help with eye strain when we're spending so much time in front of screens and phones and iPads, etc., but it also helps with regulating our circadian rhythm. So oftentimes when patients are saying, I have a hard time falling asleep, I ask them, what are you doing before bed? How many of us watch TV right before bed? So one of the best things to do to help with insomnia is to eliminate screen time. And that includes TV, phone, iPad. I think some Kindles also give off blue light as well. So eliminating it between 1 to 2 hours before bedtime and finding another activity before bed to help you fall asleep. So whether it's, reading a book or drinking some sleepy time tea, or even doing some yin yoga or meditating. Other things that can help decrease or that decrease melatonin are EMFs and microwaves. So just making sure that you decrease your exposure to those things before bed, okay? Okay, so there are many ways to test for cortisol and melatonin to see what is going on in your circadian rhythm. So there are many companies that we use that help us test for cortisol and melatonin levels. We can get salivary cortisol, which is actually gold standard. I like to get 4 samples, sometimes 5 samples of cortisol, and that would be when you wake up, 30 minutes right after you wake up, 60 minutes after you wake up, right before bedtime, and then if and so you're waking up in the middle of the night, also getting another cortisol sample. And the reason for that, again, is because we want to see that rhythm, right? I want to see if you're getting that cortisol awakening response, and I want to also see, are you staying up at night because your cortisol levels are so high? And if they are high, there's many other things that we can do to help bring that cortisol level down. And then there's also, we can check that serum wise as well, and we can order that through Quest or LabCorp. And then another way to check for melatonin, which is pretty gold standard, is urinary melatonin. And so you get 4 samples usually, and you want to see again what the rhythm is throughout the day, what it is in the morning, and what it is at night. So we see what your rhythm is. There's other tests through Genova, and Dutch is pretty great too. We can see what your sex hormones are doing, what your cortisol levels are doing, and what your melatonin levels are doing, and how all 3 are playing together. Okay, so let's talk about how we can treat insomnia. Again, treating insomnia is obviously going to be very individualized and subjective to what the person is experiencing symptom-wise and what their medical history and family history are, right? So I'll just go over a few of these, and we talked about these. So these are just simple tips as to how you can improve your sleep. So exercise, again, exercise in the morning, because we're promoting high cortisol levels in the morning. And that can help. Avoiding sugar and grains before bed. Avoid foods that you may be sensitive to, so gluten, dairy, fatty foods, any of that. And then also trying not to eat like way too soon before bed, right? A lot of people will actually wake up because they're having heartburn because they ate such a big meal. So allow for a huge gap between dinner time and bedtime, maybe 1 to 2 hours. Avoiding caffeine. I know in our culture we love coffee, but limit your caffeine intake. Caffeine, again, it wires us. It keeps us really awake, right? So maybe try to limit caffeine intake before 12 or even 2 p.m. And don't forget, caffeine is also in green tea and black teas and a little bit of white tea. So it's not just coffee. Sometimes your blood sugar can drop a little bit in the middle of the night, so that's why people will wake up. So what I find helpful is eating a protein snack before bed. Nothing too heavy though, so maybe it's just like almond butter and celery stick. Don't drink any fluids within 2 hours of going to bed. Oftentimes because people are waking up in the middle of the night, having to urinate a lot. So try not to drink all your water right before bed, right? You can try to get to bed early. Be consistent with your sleep-wake times. I know that this can be really hard with night shift workers, but it can be really beneficial to just make sure that on the days that you're not working night shift, trying to get, going to bed at the same time and waking up at the same time. Get your body to get used to a rhythm. Sleep in complete darkness or as dark as possible. Some people live in a city and street lights actually can be really, really bothersome at night. So just make sure your room is really, really dark. Getting some blacklight blackout curtains can be really helpful. So yeah, and then also sometimes having blackout curtains can make it really difficult for you to wake up in the morning because your room is so dark. What I have found really helpful is getting an alarm clock that mimics the sun. So 30 minutes before I want to wake up, it'll be bright. And then one other thing that I wanted to mention is keeping the temperature no higher than 70 degrees Fahrenheit. And the reason for that is because melatonin actually also decreases our temperature at night. So again, melatonin is really, really high at night, but it also is going to decrease our temperature. So naturally, we want to be actually cold when we fall asleep, which is why those chill pads are really popular right now, is because it helps chill your body and helps you fall into deeper sleep. So there's many other things here that are super helpful in trying to help with sleep. And then there's also supplements and botanicals. And so some of these are going to be, subjective to the person, right? So melatonin, 5-HTP, serotonin, magnesium, GABA, and then some nervines are going to be helpful too. And then of course I have to make a plug-in for acupuncture because I am an acupuncturist. So acupuncture is really helpful for sleep issues as well. Homeopathy, IV therapy, hyperbaric. There's a lot of research on hyperbaric oxygen therapy helping with insomnia. So yeah, again, I really hope you guys found this really interesting and fun. If you are interested in learning more about what we do here at this clinic, please definitely call and try and schedule an appointment. But again, try not to, do these things on your own. Hook up with a functional medicine or naturopathic doctor or make an appointment with us and would love to help you. Again, if you liked this episode, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Thanks guys. Bye.